One of the most interesting and pleasant pieces of news in Formula 1 is that Mattia Binotto will rejoin a Formula 1 team that's undergone a massive rehaul, Audi. After he left his position as the team principal of Ferrari and the team that he served loyally since 1998 in a different position, Binotto seems ready to embark on a new challenge in his career. The question is, why did Audi choose him after all of the scrutiny he's received at Ferrari? And more importantly, what does this mean for the rest of the structure of the newcomer German team, which has now endured a lot of changes to the leadership position? It goes without saying that Binotto's signature with Audi comes with a great sense of pleasure for the F1 fans. However, the Italian would have to prove himself massively in the days to come due to the fact that he's been quite criticised as the team principal of Ferrari and his poor management skills as a leader. Be that as it may, the position he has received in Audi is vastly different from the one he served in Ferrari. He's now going to be the Chief Technical Officer and the COO of the team, and that is definitely something that suits his area of work. The team has released an official statement regarding Binotto's arrival to the team by the newly appointed CEO of Audi AG, Gernot Dollner, as he went on to say, "I'm delighted that we have been able to recruit Mattia Binotto for our ambitious Formula 1 project. With his extensive experience of more than 25 years in Formula 1, he will undoubtedly be able to make a decisive contribution to Audi. Our aim is to bring the entire Formula 1 project up to speed by means of clear management structures, defined responsibilities, reduced interfaces, and efficient decision-making processes. For this purpose, the team must be able to act independently and quickly. Binotto is an engineer and therefore he has a lot of knowledge on how the engines need to work and perform in order to deliver the best possible result for the team. And considering the fact that Audi has signed some quite high-profile people in the past, such as Andrea Seidl as the CEO, as well as James Key as the technical director of the team, this only goes to show that Audi wants to accelerate the process of being competitive and maybe cut it down to 1 or 2 years instead of the projected 3-year gap before they fight for wins once they enter the sport. But this is where things get a bit interesting. The representative of the team, Oliver Hoffmann, as well as the CEO of Sauber Motorsports that we've just mentioned, Andreas Seidl, are leaving their positions as it seems like the team's restructuring is something they feel is more than needed ahead of the 2026 entry in the sport. Andreas wasn't treated fairly in the restructure in McLaren as well, and this is the second time in 2 years that he's had to adapt to conditions that are not suiting him nearly as much as he would have wanted them to, putting his experience, knowledge and credibility in huge jeopardy. According to the team, Binotto will now have the responsibility and accountability for the operative management and sporting success of the racing team, and this should be reported to the board of directors for Sauber Motorsports AG. It's a massive reconstruction if you think about it, because obviously these reports are made by the CEO of the team. But considering the fact that 2026 is going to be a brand new season with brand new rules that could go in anyone's favour, the German manufacturer is ready to risk anything, as they would be more than willing to just put all of their efforts in experienced personnel who would give detailed reports as to what is right and what is wrong with the car. That mindset was also translated in other choices of drivers, as Audi have signed the experienced German driver Nico Hülkenberg, stating that the most important thing for them was to have one driver from their own country, while for the other one, the team is yet to make a decision and influence it on Stake Sauber, who are entering their last season as a team in 2025. While many reports state that they made a huge offer to Sainz that he could find hard to refuse, it's now interesting to see whether the signature of Binotto and the position that he's been given in an Audi will influence the decision of the Spaniard. If we are to recall a little bit and go back to 2022, it wasn't Sainz who was dissatisfied with the leadership of Binotto, it was Leclerc, as the Monegasque continuously refused to speak regarding why certain calls were being made, such as the ones in Silverstone, where Binotto asked him to not talk about anything to the media due to the botched strategy, and this seems to be the tipping point in his Ferrari career. And this is what Audi has in mind for Binotto as one of his primary jobs too, apart from making sure that the engine delivers the performance that they're expecting, luring a strong second driver in the team. Again, the arrival of Binotto boosts the chances of having Sainz re-engage in talks with a German-based squad, And what is more important is that with this structure of Audi, they can guarantee Sainz two very important things: longevity in his contract, as well as sped up processes in terms of competing for podiums and wins. Therefore, he wouldn't be joining a project team that would take 3 years to fight, but he would be joining a newbie squad that has experienced personnel all over the board, covered in all sectors and all of the structures from within that he can trust and fully commit to. The only question is whether or not the criticism that Binotto has received in the past couple of years is something that would translate to his work in Audi, now that he has different duties and responsibilities. Because if you to think about it, if he cannot hold anybody accountable in case things turn south, then there's nothing much the team could do about it rather than replace him with somebody who could. So whether or not the biggest weakness of Binotto will turn out to be the nail in the coffin for his F1 career, time will tell, but as of now, it does look like he has everything it takes to lead the German team into a successful endeavour. And if you to think about it, restructuring the team isn't necessarily a bad thing, because Seidl is currently leading the operations in the team as the CEO, and they're the only team on the grid to not have scored points, despite Bottas fighting the soul out the car out there every weekend. A polar extreme is Zhou, who has been constantly out in Q1 and recently outperformed by the driver who was perceived to be the slowest on the grid, Sargent. And if you add the pit stop problems on top of that, you would see that the decision of Audi to get rid of Seidl as their CEO is nothing of a shock. Furthermore, it seems like Audi didn't like the fact that Seidl was more or less hiding his face from the public, as we haven't really heard much of him ever since he was appointed to this position. And the main spokesperson for Sauber has been Alessandro Aluni Bravi, which is also a huge argument that goes in Audi's favour. The German team definitely means business, and there's no doubt that once they enter the sport, they'll be right there in the points, considering the fact that they've signed one of the most experienced drivers for this purpose, Hülkenberg. If we're to see how big of an effect he's had on Haas's recent performance, scoring more points in 2 races in Austria and Silverstone than Perez in his last 6, not including Hungary, it's safe to assume that his knowledge and expertise will be highly valued by the Ingolstadt-based squad. It's not just Seidl that they decided to part ways with, it's also Oliver Hoffmann, who has been treated in a similar manner because once he moved from being the head of Audi's technical department to the newly created position of general representative of the team, the German team decided that enough is enough and there's no more place for him in their project. Again, all of these changes mean one thing: Audi is ready to compete up front from day one, and maybe the team believe that with the current structure they have, they cannot extract the maximum potential out of the team, and therefore, if the changes are not made sooner rather than later, they would enter a downward spiral in which it would be extremely hard to get out of. Even though James Key remained to be the technical director of Sauber, it's very uncertain as to whether or not he will continue to serve this role, because of all the restructure that Audi has undergone. This is definitely an area in which Binotto will have a huge say, because if he cannot rely on the technical director's knowledge and experience, then it's likely that the team would make 0 to no progress at all. And a simple example can be shown with Mercedes if we are to compare the performance of the W13 and the W14, as well as the W15, with the latter one being fully the product of James Allison, while the previous 2 were the product of Mike Elliott, who acknowledged himself that he wasn't good enough for his role. With all of this in mind, do you think that Binotto is the right man for the job at Audi? And more importantly, do you think that the restructure of the team will help them fight for podiums and potentially even race wins sooner rather than later, given the fact that the 2026 regulations are anybody's guess? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.